Okay, thank you very much. Good evening. Marco D'Angelo, I'm the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Canadian Urban Transit Association, otherwise known as CUTA. It's an honor to be here with you today. Firstly, thank you to the Walrus for the invitation. At CUTA, we focus on the role that transit systems play in building livable cities. So Canada saw record population growth last year. 2022 was the first year we grew by over 1 million people. But what does that mean for public transit? So let's talk about the growth of Canada's cities and the connection between transit and housing. How are we going to welcome new Canadians without the homes to support them? Levels of government are beginning to address this question. But at CUTA, we've taken this question one step further. Can our population grow while building livable, sustainable, and connected cities? For years, we've been ignoring some of the fundamental laws of sound urban planning, overlooking things that make sense and making things overly complex. All too often, housing policies overlook public transit. This only compounds the issues that are facing our cities. So this brings me to the first law that we're breaking, the law of density. When it comes to transportation investment, we often prioritize the wrong things. We invest in widening roads, we invest in new highways, and we look to our natural spaces as places to build more homes. As cities continue to grow outward, our transportation systems are stretched to the limit. This leads to longer commutes and higher transportation costs, and ultimately more congested cities. So it should come as no surprise that Toronto is the third most congested city in North America. We could see it with our own eyes. Traffic's back. So density must be a priority because generational decisions are being made today. So this is something that we've got to get right. The next law we're breaking is the law of proximity. At CUTA, we see transit and housing as a single solution. So building housing near transit hubs will allow people to access jobs, schools, and essential services in a more affordable way. This is why governments need to incentivize more housing near transit hubs to create 15-minute cities. So I'm talking about a community where a person's daily needs are within a 15-minute walk, bike, or transit ride from their home. You can think about that next time you're stuck in traffic for an hour. But we can reduce our reliance on this single occupancy vehicle with better pedestrian and cycling infrastructure, and of course, more frequent transit. We can reduce our reliance by helping governments to recognize transit as one of the most powerful emission reduction tools to reach our climate targets. We know that transportation is a quarter of Canada's greenhouse gas emissions. We've got to address that. Transit is an available solution, and that's why we're so adamant that we meet those targets by 2030, and that's why we've been even transitioning our fleet to zero-emission vehicles in recent years. Young Canadians are especially worried about climate change, and they want to be part of the solution. So we need to create the possibility of a lifestyle that meets this generation's aspirations. We also need to look at land use policy. Government needs to make it easier to acquire land for transit-oriented development. In Vancouver, for example, the agency that runs transit there was recently permitted to purchase land around transit stations for housing and community amenities. Previously, that was restricted just for transportation projects. So if we rethink our approach, this allows us to draw a straight line between residential, business, and leisure space within walking distance of transit. The next law we're breaking is the law of affordability. All too often, building new transit infrastructure increases property values and prices out low-income families. Housing affordability is the most significant challenge facing young Canadians today. A one-bedroom apartment in downtown Toronto to rent is now going for over $3,000 a month. Imagine the strides we could take if we get serious on including co-op housing in our plans. In order to have vibrant and diverse cities, governments need to mandate rental and affordable housing near transit. We need to design cities that meet the needs of everyone, putting at the heart those who rely on public transit as their primary mode of transportation. The City of Chicago offers grants for equitable transit-oriented development to incentivize that sort of progressive planning. We need to rethink our approach. When transit is at the center of our cities, it makes life more affordable and it supports more equitable urban growth. We know public transit is an economic engine in our region. A recent U of T study confirmed this. They indicate that the economic impact of the TTC on our region, it says every dollar invested in transit generates $2.40 in economic activity. And most encouraging, every $1 million invested in transit helps to create 15 long-term new high-paying jobs. So this leads me to the final law that we need to be mindful of. The law of gravity. What goes up must come down. In Toronto, we're seeing investments by the province and federal governments to build record public transit infrastructure. This will be great. But what we're not seeing is an investment in operating today's transit to maintain those service levels. So operations are what hold back the opening day of all of this new beautiful transit infrastructure. This mismatch simply makes no sense. In the City of Toronto, new transit lines are being built while the TTC this year is being forced to reduce service to existing lines. So what can we do? We need to come together to envision the cities of tomorrow. Population impacts housing. Housing impacts transit, and transit impacts our economy, which prompts the question, wouldn't it be nice to live in a truly sustainable, equitable, and affordable city? Thank you to the Walrus for allowing me to speak and the need for action to address these critical issues. Thank you.